want to thank everybody for coming out. It's a absolutely gorgeous May evening, so we get to sit and look at it from inside this meeting tonight. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. Ms. Kinzer, will you take the roll?
Ms. Parker? Ms. Kinzer's here. Ms. Hopkins? Mr. Fulbright?
Here.
Mr. Moore? Ms. Urban? Mr. Sims? Mr. Hooper? Mr. Howell? Mr. Lindsey? Mr. Dudley? Ms. Hopkins is coming in, and we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. This time, you've had a chance to look over the agenda. I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda. A motion from Mr. Moore, second from Mr. Hooper. I guess we don't have Shirley with us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Let's go ahead and get into the budget. Mr. Laconin.
So you can see the updated document on the agenda. Oh, it just connected. There we go. This is the current document that we have. In between meetings, this had to be updated due to the state sending out new information about the medical insurance costs for this year. It was a 2.5% increase, so that we only had to increase our budget 1.25% because that's only going to be effective half of the fiscal year. So that total cost increase, hold on, is really about a $200,000 difference in what was presented last meeting. In addition to that, we have added the new BEP funding as an increase to our revenue budget, putting it at $60,852,000.
What was that BEP number?
$60,852,000.
I guess my better question would be, what was the increase designated for raises in that number?
$1,592,000.
$1,592,000.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then something that I did not change any of my revenue estimates in preparation for this meeting, but I have reviewed sales tax. We are projected to come in at $20.7 million this year. I only have $19.8 for next year. I am comfortable increasing that $500,000
Okay.
if the board is amenable to that.
Any objections to that? I think that's a wise decision.
It still puts us behind this year's projection for any safety of revenue maybe lost to other counties due to people getting out more, but I still think it's a conservative estimate and helps us do what we need to do.
Okay. Let me ask you, with that 1.592 number, if all of that went to teacher raises, all of that went to staff raises, how much of a percentage raise would that be across the board?
With corresponding benefits and everything included, it would be 2.12%.
Okay.
And that would put us at the deficit that we had before we got the revenue.
Right, and that's, I'm fine with
yeah.
that. Well, not if we increase the sales tax number, though.
Right, so it would actually look $500,000 better. So it is about $750,000 due to the staff cuts. That's a cost per percentage on across the board raises.
I'll take a couple questions next, but I'll tell you what I want to see a number on. I want to see what our budget would look like with a 2% raise for everybody, upping that sales tax like you mentioned, and then to see where we're at. And if you can do that quickly, I'll wait. Otherwise, I'll take some questions. And I'll go ahead and say, just as a precursor to this discussion, if there was roughly 2.1% raise budgeted for us by the legislature, that's roughly what we need to be given. We don't need to be spending that money on toilet paper and tires. No offense, Mr. Perriman.
So factor in that 2% raise for everyone. We would do, if we did a 2.12% raise, it would be the full $1,592,000. Just a flat 2% is $1,500,000.
Of a deficit?
That in the new sales tax added in is a $560,000 deficit for next year's budget that would come from fund balance.
I myself am fine with that. Ms. Kinzer?
Mr. Laconin kind of verified these numbers for me as well, and I don't think a 2.1 is enough. I don't think it's gonna make us competitive. We actually have had a 2,102,011 increase in property tax this year. We're ending up through June with a 4.520806 increase in sales tax, all of which will go into fund balance. We're gonna have a really large fund balance. And those monies that are dumped in from departments, they're monies that weren't used. They are monies that could have been allocated for teacher and teacher raises. They weren't used. So we kind of have, to me, I think we need to take care of our teachers. We are looking at, once again, we helped something I'm beginning. I would like to see a 4% raise. Mr. Laconin verified to me that with FICA and everything, all of that goes with the insurance, that's $750,000 and change per percentage. If we use the figure you gave, 1.592, you actually told us in January and February that you thought we were going to have a deficit of 1.7. And so now that's down, and actually it was $300,000 to the good. So I think we can say, well, look at there. We thought we were going to have a deficit, and we were okay with that, to use fund balance for that deficit. But rather than use it that way, I'd like to see us use it for teachers. And a 4% raise would cost how much, Mr. Conan? How much would a 4% cost?
It would be a total cost of $3 million.
$3 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Of which we've got half already at the state that we absolutely have to spend. So you're really just spending 1.9% for a raise for teachers. It should be a percentage raise, and I'll tell you why. We give step raises, which you all think of that as raises. They're kind of mandated by the state. Many of our teachers, almost 400 of our teachers, they don't give a raise anymore. Once they either at 16, 18, or after 20, they don't get a step raise. But they have gone and gotten a master's degree. They've gone and gotten an EDS or a doctorate, all of which cost money, and they pay for themselves. They have been in the classroom, gotten experience, and yet if we give a flat rate, we're telling that beginning teacher that they're as worthy as others. Or you're telling the classified as well. A percentage is more equitable to me, and more equitable for retirement purposes as well. Now, I think we need to discuss this for sure, but that's my proposal, 4%.
Thank you, Ms. Irvin.
Mr. Laconin, I'm going to probably throw you for a curve here. I'm also, like Miss Betty, I'm all about our teachers. I want to give them a raise as well. But over the last few days, I've heard from a wealth of people, and I want all of us to think about another factor. There's a lot of things that go into making a teacher happy, and we've sat here and we've talked a lot about those components. And what I'm hearing from a lot of our teachers is that due to our teacher position cuts, our schedules next year, at least I know at a handful of schools, are overwhelming. A teacher, let's say an ELA teacher in a high school who's now teaching 10 more kids, I've done it. I don't know if you guys, you've all remembered the agony of writing papers, but let me tell you, it's no fun grading those papers either. And when you're looking at 10 junior, senior papers that they have to do, that's a lot of time and effort for that increase. And that's just one scenario. I really would also, I'm happy at this point. I want us to continue to try to, what I would like to see happen is do a staggered growth on their pay. I'm content with the 2% potentially for this year, and then maybe looking at next year, because it's my understanding that as our county continues to grow, this money should become more fluid. Is that correct? Like, we think we're going to be in a better position next year. I'll let you answer that.
No.
No.
No, we're going to be in a better position. We're going to have more revenue, but our costs are going to go up. For every person that moves to Murray County that's a resident, they fund themselves about 70% of what the infrastructure costs.
Sure.
And so what we really hope for is commercial and business development here in Murray County. But at the same time, we know we have to provide that service, and our revenue wholly depends on the commission. Yes, our property tax is outperforming the penny that was assigned to us, but the commission can chop down that penny for every dollar we've increased sales tax. So we don't really have all the control we need over our own funding source. So just with that in mind, as we have growth, you know, it costs. We'll have to add teachers. We'll have to build schools. You know, y'all saw how much a new school is. You know, these are all costs due to growth, and something that we need to make sure we're providing as a service for Murray County. But at the same time, knowing how to fund that. So, and technically, that's the commission's job is making sure that we're funded to where we need to be. So.
Well, my job is making sure we're giving quality education to children. So with that said, what I've heard, I know that some schools, again, I can just speak to what I know, but I've heard from a wealth of parents in the Santa Fe community and spoken to a bunch of people, but I know we're losing our technology program. And that's a real loss for our school because, you know, we're able to get those kids, my kids who are middle school and high school, and I'm sure like a lot of your kids who've had technology, they're able to do PowerPoints, presentations. I mean, they could almost go into a boardroom and put together but that's where our future's at. And we're going to be our kids are going to be expected to do those things when they get in high school. And my fear is by pulling these programs, then we're going to have a huge gap. Another fold of that is that we are losing 2 additional teachers, is my understanding. It makes for 3 total positions, but only 2 teachers, because one of our middle school funded was doing technology. But we're going to have high school teachers teaching 7th graders, and it'll be one teacher teaching from 7th grade to 11th grade, the same ELA. Well, that in one way is a blessing, but in another way it could be a curse because if someone doesn't learn well under a particular teacher, that's a concern. And with that, another thing we're seeing is that with some of the positions we're losing valued coaches. And let me tell you, that may not be hard to find at these bigger schools. That's really hard to find at these small schools. Because right now I know we've got a lot of non-faculty coaches, and that's a fear. And I would like to see us at least, at a minimum, bring back at least 12 positions out of the 24 that we cut. I don't know if that's doable. I don't know if it's possible, but I think that it is. Because another thing we need to think about is we're building, hopefully, a new high school for growth, but then we're cutting teachers. That sends out a conflicting message to our community. And let me tell you, we may find the most fabulous teachers come August and September when we realize we potentially messed up, but typically your best teachers are obtained in right now. They should already be hired in May and June. And we talk about moving Murray County forward, and you move Murray County forward with people. So yes, I want the teacher raises, Miss Betty. I want to fight for that as hard as I can. But I also don't want our teachers to be burnt out and looking for other jobs because we all know what burnout does, and we also know what not offering opportunities to our kids does. So I would like to potentially ask for half of those back.
Mr. Chairman, we've got, this is a voting meeting, correct? Okay. I've got 3 different proposals so far. We're gonna get to that. Okay. We're gonna narrow things down. All right.
Just double check my numbers, Doug. Going kind of back to what Ms. Kinzer said. Property tax projection. Current year we're in excess revenue of somewhere $2.1 million. Is that a safe number, you think?
I'm actually estimating that we're going to have around 26 million this year altogether. But I want to check, and I think our budget was 24 something, so I've actually got about 1.6 million as that difference right now.
Okay. All right. So what? Well, let me pull it up. Well, while I'm looking for that, another question. sales tax projection, I realize we got 2 more months on that. Would $4.5 million excess in that revenue, is that a number you're comfortable with?
I'm at 3.9 million. I think we're at 20.7 as a total. That's where I'm projecting right now.
Are you projecting the
Conservatively.
last 2 months to be exactly what they were last year, May and June?
Close to it, but I know we're gonna beat it, but
Gotcha.
I'm being conservative.
Alright. So, let's just indulge me and use my numbers for a minute. If property tax is at 2 point... This is just discussion points. Alright, so property tax 2.1, sales tax 4.5. What is your projection as far as expenditures go?
Schiffer is pulling it up right now. So go to the bottom. Sorry. That was across the whole thing. So I'm projecting total revenues of 109.9 to end this year with, and I'm projecting expenditures of 109.5. That expenditure projection includes everybody spending every single dollar of service, supply, capital, other costs, monies that are in their budget. That rarely happens. So, like I said today in my email, worst case scenario is we have a $300,000 surplus.
Best case scenario, and so just indulge me again for a minute. If we spent 98% of our budget, expenditure-wise, so we save $2.3 million from expenditures, you would project revenues minus expenditures that we would put $2.5 million in fund balance, using my numbers.
Using your numbers,
right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's all.
I would say the 2%, see, that goes across the board, and our payroll, it's gonna hit what I've got projected, because unless people leave, and the year's pretty much done. So, and all this payroll is for work that has already happened, specifically for teachers. So really, you're just looking at those supply line items. So if you come in 2% under on those, you know the majority of our expenditure budget is payroll. But it still does yield more towards the surplus.
That's all for now, Mr. Chairman.
So we passed an original budget on last year with a deficit of $1.8 million, correct?
We passed a balanced budget last year.
Okay.
In anticipation of our revenues only went up $200 and something thousand due to BEP, and then the expenditures, we just balanced those out full on, knowing that we were going to spend more than that.
I just want to add to that,
So-
I don't think I think we knew that numbers weren't going to be accurate in the end.
Right. But we're ending with a minimum of a $300,000 surplus. So I just want to point that out, that we started in a negative and now we're greatly in the positive, and perhaps even more better than we thought before, so.
In my defense, the figures I gave, Schiffer verified for me. And the amounts, right.
I didn't say that all that money would go back to the fund balance, because it's not just property tax and sales tax that builds the budget.
You did say
yeah.
some of it would be used for.
Correct, for current
Okay, but
expenditures, so.
I didn't just pull them out of the,
Yes,
okay.
the actuals totals were correct. Last year, we put back $2.4 million in the fund balance based off of the audited numbers, so.
Okay.
Well, I don't see any other lights, so I'm gonna make a motion. I make a motion that we go with the number provided there on the screen. Doug, am I still correct that is the budget we passed? It's the same expenses except with a 2% raise. And the revenue numbers are different based off of the increased BEP and sales tax.
And the increased cost of medical insurance.
Yes, that extends too.
And that is it.
And
yeah.
that does take into account that roughly 1.6 that was designated by the General Assembly is being put in there for teacher raises as asked for.
I've got 1.5 million flat in there right now, because that's a flat 2% raise. I can
That's
give
what I
it-
want.
Okay.
That's all I want.
Okay.
I don't wanna make this more
'Cause we-
confusing than I need it to be. That's my motion. Yes. I have a second down there for Mr. Lindsay. We'll continue, Mr. Lindsay, your light's on for discussion.
I want to go back to a point that, Ms. Irwin made. When we originally passed this budget, I think we were at 1.2 million that night, when we, $1.2 million deficit. And then we found some more savings, we found some more revenue, so we've wound up where we are today. I've also had a lot of feedback, about, I haven't had as much feedback about loss of positions as I have had loss of people, and there is a difference in that. And I understand that. I was driving up here tonight not having a clue what I wanted to do, because I have a problem. There were pink slips handed out yesterday and sending people home, and the very next day we're talking about giving raises. So I'm struggling with that. So with that being said, we approved a $1.2 million deficit budget last time. If we added those 12 positions back Ms. Irwin talked about, $600,000, is that a safe number, or what number would you put on that?
With benefits and everything, $720,000. 12 positions, $60,000.
So, Mr. Chairman,
That's an estimate. It could come in as saving, it could come in above. It just depends on the experience and the benefit plan they choose.
Right. Mr. Chairman, I'm making an amendment to your motion by adding those 12 positions back with an addition of that number that Mr. Luconen just gave us.
Okay, I have an amendment. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Ms. Irvin seconds. All right, so now we're discussing the amendment, which is exactly what I had said to start with the exception of putting 12 positions back into the budget as original, or, as an added expense.
It was $720,000 just for the 12 positions.
Oh, first I have a question. Are you saying then you're gonna use out of fund balance the excess? So we're willing to do that out of fund balance, that's recurring position, but we're not willing to take some of that money and give it should not be less than 3%. It really shouldn't. 2%, and actually you're supposed to spend every penny of it on a raise as well, so it should be 2.1% to do it legally, but, I can certainly vote for the amendment, but I cannot vote for a 2%. It needs to be more, and it needs to be that we show our teachers. And you're right, we're gonna have people needing jobs. Ms. Garrard told me that she's having people leaving us, coming in, leaving, retiring. We've got to offer something and attract those people. And look at the surrounding counties. It's not just beginning, it's being able to hold them here. So, I don't know what more I can say. If we are having a discussion to spend $1 million on a track for Central High School, can we not have a discussion to take care of our teachers and to offer a living wage for them? I don't understand that. I really don't.
Mr. Hickman, I want to ask, out of those 24 positions that were cut in the original cuts that we've been talking about, how many of those were actual people that were gonna be displaced?
I want to clarify the process a little bit. What we did is we took all of the non-renews, the retirements, and the resignations. We took those, we went through those, we sorted through them and made sure how it would impact class ratios. We told the school principals, these are the 3 positions or 4 positions or 1 position that you will not be giving back. principals then asked, could they choose another position in their school to replace, in lieu of that position. And if they felt strongly about it, we allowed them to do that. So our intent from the district office was we cut 0 people. We cut 24 positions that were non-renews, retirements, or resignations anyway. We did it based on making sure that their ratio numbers would not go over. We didn't cut anybody in a program, or did we ask principals, hey, you've got to non-renew 2 more people. That never happened.
So the number of pink slips that went out yesterday were?
Where most of them were going out anyway, but some specifically we're speaking of high schools. Some chose to keep wanted to keep a certain position that we said to cut because they wanted it for an upcoming coach position, and there was other positions that they were looking at cutting anyway.
So the net number of people that lost their jobs yesterday were?
Well, the net number of people were 24.
Well, the number of people.
But the number of people that we said additionally from what was not going to be there anyway was 0.
Okay,
now, principals
thank you.
did.
Mr. Howell.
I'm gonna kinda have to agree with Ms. Kinzer on this. A 2% raise, I don't feel is adequate. We're already behind the ball with surrounding counties. I don't know, I haven't looked, but I'm sure the surrounding counties are probably going to give raises, which would put us, unless they're just only doing a 2% raise, could put us potentially behind even more. So I don't know why we wouldn't be looking at a 3 or 4% raise minimum. We cut these positions because we wanted to make the budget so that we could afford to give raises, and now we're talking about, well, we don't really need to give that much of a raise. We need to put these positions back. So I don't know why we would cut them in the first place, why we had that discussion, why we did that, why we made those budget cuts, if literally 3 weeks later we change our minds and completely go a different direction of what we had decided to do. So I will not be I will not be voting to support this unless we have a 3% minimum raise.
Thank you. Mr. Sims.
Mr. Hickman, I know that when you were originally speaking on cutting the 24 positions, you talked about the anticipation of going to have to hire some of those back anyway. Do you have a projected number on what you feel, if we were to keep the 24 positions cut, how many you feel that we would need regardless of if we were to pass this or not?
Since our enrollment projection was flat this year, it's kind of hard to really get that number for you. But what we do know is sort of what they presented the other night to the county commission is for every 100 rooftops, they estimate 39 kids come with 100 rooftops. We know that they are expanding very rapidly, and so we do anticipate growth. But if I was to give you an educated number, I would probably stay with anywhere between that 2 to 5%, just because the numbers that they're projecting in growth through the county is 5% each year, the total population. So it was hard to project the number on that growth just because it stayed flat now for 3 years.
I was just curious, when did we find out about the increase in BEP? Was that like 3 weeks ago?
It was the meeting we came here, I found out like an hour and a half before, and I gave it to y'all, the paper copies.
Right, but I guess my frustration, I'll just say, is we get our documents and there's no recommendation for a raise. And what I saw on the budget proposal tonight, I mean, that discussion started, it looked like via emails, started by board members. I know Ms. Kinzer has always pushed that. Mr. Lindsay was asking for numbers from Mr. Lukonen. When we're handing out pink slips, and we were, I mean, there's no other way to say it, But when we're doing that and turning around, and it's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing as far as raises, cutting positions, and having a global outlook for personnel. And that's really kind of concerning to me, and I'm gonna have a hard time probably supporting a lot of these things tonight, just because I don't really feel like there's been a lot of thought put into it from central office's side and conveyed to us. That's just my opinion. I think we've had 3 weeks to work on this. I'm just a little disappointed with what we've gotten so far.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanna go back to a question that you had asked Mr. Hickman, and maybe I'm the only one in here, and if so, that's my ignorance. But when we passed the budget, we came in that night, and there had been talk about cuts in positions, but this board never took a vote, had an official stance of what that number was. So the night we passed this preliminary budget, leadership walked in here and said, hey, we can cut 24 positions. And this is where my ignorance comes in, I guess. I was expecting positions. I really never expected someone to receive a pink slip because we couldn't fund that position. Now, I expected pink slips to go out because it was in the best interest of Murray County Schools that they no longer work there, or they did not perform very well. And again, if I'm the only one in here, then I'll say I'm sorry, and you'll just have to excuse that ignorance. But the fact is, like Ms. Parker said, there have been people this week that were informed they no longer have a job, and whatever reason was given to them, the bottom line reason is there's not funding in the current budget to fund those positions. So I just wanted to hit back on that, and while I'm here, I need to read my conflict of interest statement where I can get that out of the way. So I have a conflict of interest in the item about to be voted upon. I pledge that my vote's guided by my conscience, and my decision is only made with the best interest of Murray County Schools in mind.
Thank you. I want to take a step back, and maybe this would have been the more appropriate way to handle this going forward. Instead of me throwing out a motion, I guess I should have asked Mr. Hickman, do you have, or does your central office have a recommendation that you would like to see considered?
Yes,
Since I
sir.
didn't give you that
Yeah,
opportunity to
and-
say that.
And our intent the whole time is use the money for what its intended purpose was, and that was for teacher pay increases. When it was delivered by the state, it was for increasing that line in the BEP. So that has been our total, that's just what we not only recommend, but we hope is approved, that it goes for that. And I do want to kind of hit on that, because we had, just this year alone, we had 80 positions that were non-renewal, resignation, and retirement. 80. So these aren't 24 that we don't normally have. So we took those positions that were in those categories, and we took the ratios where it would be not detrimental to a school for that grade level or subject, whichever you're talking about, elementary, middle, or high, and try to make it non-impactful, because these were people that were going to be non-renewed, resign, or retire, regardless of what we did. 80. And we just took a sliver of that, a quarter of that, and took 24 of those and said, those aren't coming back. Those positions aren't coming back. So, although 24 sounds like a lot, so it sounds like a lot, it's just part of the natural, what happens in the school district anyway.
So I just want to say, I did not talk to you whenever I came up with my idea for this motion. You and I haven't talked about budget stuff probably in 3 weeks. But I do think that what I proposed sounds like kind of what you were describing, even though you and I hadn't talked about that. All right, we do have an amendment on the table. Mr. Howe, your light.
So if we hire these 12 positions, people back, where are they going? Are we just gonna just randomly throw them out there? How are we gonna distribute that? I mean, if these are positions we had 80 leave and we're gonna hire 12 back, I mean, were those non-essential programs to begin with? Do we have too many teachers?
The first place we'd look is if any principal chose to cut a program and see if they still need or want that program to bring it back, such as the technology, which, once again, was not a position we cut. Or, I think dance was one, which those would be the first ones we would look at to make sure we bring those back. The next thing what we'd want to do is try to use some of these to help minimize learning loss, especially when you're looking at second and third grade, and also in your ninth grade, 10th grade math, because a lot of those students have had the most impact of our learning loss. The second and third grade next year would be our kindergarten and first graders from last year. Now they're first and second graders this year. I feel we need to reduce the class numbers in those. Math, we're seeing a big impact on learning loss with our math, so we feel like we need to bring that back to reduce those class sizes, because we had many retakes in math, many students coming up that we feel are gonna need that extra support. So those would be the number 1 and 2 areas we'd look at.
So any programs that were cut weren't cut by the board. They were not cut by central office. They were cut on the line by the principal themselves, who decided for whatever reason to cut those programs. Okay. So you're talking about adding these teachers into math courses in high school and whatnot. Aren't we using BEP or ESSER funds for things like that? Are we not doing that as well?
We are
to
going
combat learning loss?
We are going to ask for that in ESSER as well, but if we bring back those 12s, that'll help us to use that ESSER funds elsewhere as needed.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you. I'll keep mine brief because most people probably know where I stand on most of this stuff anyway. I'd just like to remind, for everyone I know we're talking about adding and taking back, and it's something I've said that I'm always uncomfortable when this board starts shooting from the hip, so to speak. When we, as several people said, we've got a couple of weeks to go over this, and then all of a sudden we're kind of throwing things out. I too wish we'd had some more direction from central office rather than us making board level decisions on what we want to do on this. I would have liked to have had some discussions about that. Personally, I get very uncomfortable when we talk about adding positions back. I think we need to be careful as board members. I know we hear from the public and we hear certain people may be impacted very closely by some of the decisions that are made. And that's going to happen every day in every school we have. But again, I think that gets back to, if we're going to take money and put positions back in and then go straight back to those positions, maybe there's a very good reason that position was cut. Maybe there is a very good reason from a programming standpoint that was a decision that was made at that school. And it may be uncomfortable and unpopular, and that's going to happen at times. And there may be kids that are impacted by that, and I don't like it. But again, as a county, we have to make sure that, and what I would hope, what I'm kind of looking for, is that we make decisions at a county level that are looking at the best interest of that. Because again, every dollar that goes one place is a dollar that's not spent somewhere else. And I try to remember that when we look at these things, that although it may impact my child or my neighbor's child or something else like that, sometimes programs do need to go away. And I'm not speaking to any program in particular, but sometimes things just change and we need to look a different direction, and that's okay. So I'm uncomfortable when we start talking about just going straight back to a program that was just decided by the administrator of the building to be removed, to go back and put it right back in because we put money into it. I think that seems backwards to me. It seems to make more sense if the principal and the central office have decided it, or however that is, but us deciding to bring it back just because we found money, that seems backwards. So, that said, I'll go back to, I still don't want to pass a deficit budget, and I'm fundamentally opposed to doing so, so I'm probably not going to vote yes for any of these.
Ms. Hopkins.
I just want to say, what Miss Betty said, it just, and, my friend here, can't think of his name, sorry. It's so many things to think about and talk about, but, our teachers, our students, that's what I feel about that too. It just, it's just not gonna fly. It just can't, it ain't gonna get off, they don't even get them off the ground. They've just been through so much, everything that keeps coming back to me. When I went to those resiliency awards and hearing those teachers, what those students have endured and went through, not just because of COVID, but during COVID, it happened. You know, we want to take Maury County to another level, but if you don't support your teachers that are we can have technology, we can have this, we can have that. Your teachers are the ones that are going to drive that education into every student that we want to send out into the workforce world one day. So if we don't attract them here and bring them here and keep them, what are we going to do? What is Maury County really going to do? How are we going to reach that? You know, they're well worthy, and it's past. Like I said, it's not that it's just due; it's past due for them. So we got to do something, but you know, they're worthy of that. This has been a tumultuous year, and we want to show them that we're behind them, and we want to put that in them. They're the tools. Everybody in this whole room has the degrees they have learned from a teacher. Simple as that.
Ms. Parker?
I will say I tend to agree with Mr. Moore. When we start shooting from the hip, that doesn't always lead to good things. But I'm not so sure that we weren't shooting from the hip with the decisions that were made to relieve certain people of their jobs. And before we close the door on that, I would really like a presentation, school by school. This is who we're losing. This is the decision that was made. This is why the decision was made. And I'm not saying that we second guess those decisions, but like Mr. Hickman just said, you know, he wants to see smaller classes for grades K1, K2. I mean, I know of a school where they lost 2 second grade teachers. So, I mean, are 60 kids going in one classroom? Obviously, that's not going to happen, and people will get moved around. But to me, it doesn't square with what you're saying is your objective. And, you know, this board, a long time ago, said we wanted to have art in all of our elementaries. We wanted to have music in all of our elementaries. We wanted to have technology in all of our elementaries. We put money into that, even though we don't get BEP money from it. But what I'm seeing is that when they get to middle and high school, those things get taken away from them. So what's the point in exposing them to it in elementary school if you're just going to take it away from them in middle and high school? I would really like to know what we really, I mean, we talk with Mr. Perryman all the time about designing our school, programming our school. I don't know what a high school in Maury County is supposed to have. I don't. And I don't know if it's reflected in this budget. I don't know if it's reflected in the decisions that were made to let go of certain teachers. And that's really what I'm wanting. I just want to be empowered to know that we are passing a budget that is consistent with what you guys want to do. But I hear a lot of, well, the principal made that decision. Did the principal make that decision in conjunction with you, and does it play into the global what you want from Maury County? Does it play into what elementary fund goes into the middle school, what the impact is going to be there? Does it play into the middle schoolers that are going into high school? I don't know on that, and that's really all I'm wanting to see, and I don't have that tonight. I'll just be honest.
Am I in charge?
I've got to say I'm a little taken back right now. We brought a budget to you the first time, and I was told, nope, that budget's not going to work. Then we brought back another budget. We cut 10 positions, and I was told we had a people problem, that we need to cut more. So we went through, we spent 2 weeks going through to make sure we weren't going to harm any class size ratios or anything. making sure we had the core subjects, making sure we weren't killing programs, making sure that we were making the right decisions based on the information that my board gave me to cut people. And that's what we did. And I told you the night we did that, because I was told, we have a people problem, you've got to cut more. And I told you, even cutting those 24, I said, the exact words I remember saying is, this is going to set us back. This is not going to be good for teacher morale. I was told these things. Did I think we needed to cut all 24? Nope, but I was tasked to. Because it goes into a lot more than just ratios, but I was told by the board, I wasn't even heard out when we brought the $114 million budget with a 3% raise. I was shut down immediately and told, nope, you got to go do some cuts. So you're asking me now, as why are these 24 positions cut? I was told to by you. That we had a people problem is what I was told. Now, could we lost some positions? We felt comfortable at 10. We really did, and I told you that we felt comfortable at 10, but I was told, nope, that's not enough. So when we came into tonight, it wasn't even in my mind to bring back any positions because I was told those positions had to be cut, so we cut them. So the only direction I even would have thought of for this additional money was one of two things. Was one, either put it toward our deficit, or two, put it toward giving our employees raises. And I truly believe we need to give them raises, especially after the year they just went through, to show a tip of the cap. Show them, hey, we appreciate it. So I don't understand now why it's coming back like, well, why were these 24 positions cut? Because I was told to.
Ms. Parker.
I don't know when we say to cut that we say just cut the teachers. I mean, I'm just going to be, I don't think those words ever came out of my mouth. Are there any positions at central office that have been vacant for any period of time? I know last year we had a data person that was vacant for an entire year. I don't know that that was under your watch, but that was under the previous administration. And we get to the end of the year and all of a sudden, we find out we didn't have a data person all year. I don't want to see those things happen. So, in my opinion, if there is any restructuring that needs to go on, I was expecting that to come back to us. I will say right now, it bothers me when I look at the org chart. We have a middle school supervisor and we have a high school supervisor. And we have the majority of our kids in elementary. I have no idea how we just bypass elementary. And I know that that was not funded. But are there other positions that we can cut to fund something like that? That's my frustration. I feel like we're charging you with thinking outside of the box. And I'm not just saying cut teachers. I think there are other people that we employ in this district as well, including people that are at West 8th Street. Just being real about it. That's what we hear from teachers all the time.
Ms. Irvin.
So I think my position's been pretty clear from the beginning. I know I'm one of 10, but I am one of 10. And I've never stood for teacher cuts, ever. And I have made calls to, I think, numerous people to express that my intent was to bring back some positions. And not because of how it's impacting my kid, it's because how it's impacting the kids of Murray County. And there are certain things that when we take away, they're going to do a lot of harm. And here's another thing, and this is where I'm struggling. If I could do my wants, I want to give the teachers a 5% raise. Heck, I want to give them a 20% raise. But that's not something we can realistically do. I know that. But you know what I'm hearing from teachers right now? I had to drop my kids off, at different things. I've heard from teachers right and left. We got to get some positions. Have you seen her schedule? They're working us to death. I'm going to have 35 kids in a class. I can't do that. So I don't care. And I got to be careful because I want to give these teachers every penny they deserve. I do. And I hope some way we can get on board with that. I want to give them, like you said, I think they do need the 2.1. That's only $92,000 more than what we've got presented in here. I think we need to do what the state's told us. But at the same time, if I was a teacher and I had to choose between, let's say, $400 more annually and having a lighter workload, you know, I think I'd rather have that lighter workload. That's just a thought. I don't know. Like I say, these decisions to cut, they're impacting our kids and they're impacting our teachers. And like I say, we can throw money at them all day long, but when we give them horrible working conditions, they're still not going to be happy. So it's something to think about.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further lights. We do have an amendment. Oh, Mr. Hooper.
Oh, sorry.
You snuck that one in on me.
I just have some questions for Doug, just so I understand completely where we're at. Fund balance at the end of this year, do you have like a rough projection of it? I can't find the numbers. I'm trying to find them.
Yeah, I had them, let me go ahead and pull them up. I had us hitting a low point of 3.4 million, which is actually pretty good, and then 12,529,000 to end in June 30. So, you know, with these numbers, you know, we would be able to absorb the deficit currently proposed.
And what about next year? Are the numbers projected to be similar to the growth that we've seen this year in our revenues, or more or less? Because I'm thinking not this year, but the next year as well, with the extra positions they propose to add, and also, you know, all the things we got.
For sales tax, I think we can see us beat that projection, the 20.3 million that I increased tonight. However, property tax really depends on the commission. If they decide to hold maintenance of effort, they can reduce that revenue by every dollar that sales tax went up. So they could handicap us there as far as revenue is concerned. But it's our job to, I feel, I don't want to tell you all what to do, but I just want to give you data. But the school board, you know, you guys have to ask for what you need, and it's the commission's job to make sure that it's funded in a certain manner. So.
Okay. So, well,
go ahead.
Just keep following up on that. So the 1.28 is the current deficit plus the 12 teacher positions, and that would be based off those 12 positions. We're adding the 720,000 every year, but the 4% number, basically you double the 1.592 number roughly. That's 2.1, right? Yeah. So it'd be a little less than that. If you were to add that, that number would be 2.152 million. That's what we'd be looking at with another more percent. That's just that number, little lower, because that's that same number added back. That's 2.1 added twice. So it'd be a couple 100,000 lower. So right around 2 million, right?
So the figure that's up there right now, that's just 1.5 million plus 720,000. The 720 represents the 12 positions. The 1.5 million represents the current motion, which is a flat 2%. If we did do a 2.12, it would increase that number by 92,000 and put us at 2,312,000, and it would increase the deficit to be 1,372,000. And if we added percentages to that, every percent is another 750,000.
Yeah. And I'm just worried about the sustainability of this every year. If it's coming on a fund balance, then if we have a down year, we're going to be in the same situation we are now of having to figure out a way to get back lower, because there is a likelihood, since we perform so well on sales tax, that the county commission comes back and reduces our property tax allocation, and then we're in another spot where we've been at this entire budget process to get to this number that we can afford.
Mr. Hickman.
I just want to take a moment to respond to Ms. Parker. We did look out of the box, and there's nothing. We're already under ratio per BEP formula for EAs. We're under formula for a lot of those positions. We talk about central office. We're in the bottom 5 in funding in the state for funding our central office. On top of that, for you math people, the effect size of a principal is pretty significant in student achievement, right? It's 0.25. An effective central office is 0.24, just a 100th point difference. Right now, we're doing a lot of things good, But because everybody's having to wear so many hats, we are so understaffed there, but we didn't complain when we asked for those positions we needed. Do we have one? Yes, we have one, and we've tried to hire that all year because basically some of the folks that were applying for it were classroom teachers, which we tried not to dip in there to take them out. So, you know, I've heard a lot since I've been here about how central office is this, central office is that, but I'm telling you, you're getting your bang for your buck if you compare us to other districts in the state for our capacity of how many we have, bottom 5. And then what the significance is that we do there.
Thank you. Don't see any further lights, but I just wanted to add my little commentary. What I suggested at the very beginning with the initial motion wasn't really a change from the budget proposal brought to the county commission, except for the new numbers with revenue and insurance and BEP set aside for raises. So, you know, all these other changes that have taken place, it's great to consider, and I'm glad we're having that discussion. But I just want to say mine was basically just a motion to update things correctly for what they're supposed to be. But we are voting now on the amendment. The amendment as presented is to 2% raise, putting 12 positions back into the budget, increasing the expense of insurance as we were notified of earlier, and increasing the sales tax revenue. Was there anything else? This is only on the amendment, and that puts us at a final number of
$110,752,069.
with a deficit of 1.28
That's approximate.
something?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want
Is
that
everybody
included?
clear on what you're voting on? You're voting on just this amendment to add back 12 positions to a budget that's already been increased for a 2% raise.
Are you okay with that? I miss Shirley tonight, by the way.
And so, you know, Miss Shirley isn't missing because she's missing.
Now, I don't know how specific we need to get on all this, but the motion was to do the 2% raise. The amendment is to add back the 12 positions.
And I thought with the motion to amend the motion at the beginning that would be.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Is everybody clear on what you're voting on? Mr. Lindsay?
Just a point of clarification, it is what it is now, but the only budget we have voted on was a $1.2 million deficit budget. After that night, more revenue was found, more cuts were found, and we never voted on that. This board passed a $1.2 million deficit budget. That's the last vote we've taken. That's just my point.
Yep, thank you.
One question, Mr. Lindsay
Yes.
made the motion. Who made the second on that?
Ms. Irvin?
Thank you. I'm gonna try not to mess this up.
And I just want to clarify, this is a vote on the amendment to a proposed motion.
Okay.
Okay,
Please vote
we're gonna
now.
find out shortly. What happened?
Oh, you want it again? Please vote now.
Oh, thank you. Man, I thought the whole computer system crashed the way y'all did that. Oh, I misvoted. I need to change mine. I misvoted. Thank you. All right, so the amendment does not pass. Back to the original motion. The original motion is to go forward with the budget with a revamped revenue and expense number. I'll let you catch up here. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. All right, so that, amendment does not pass. So back to the original motion, which was to, I've already said these changes enough that if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer or repeat them. Basically, it's just updating all the numbers we've been given based off of the legislature's increase of BEP designated for raises, increase in insurance, sales tax, and no additional positions put back in the budget. Mr. Lindsay?
Just a question for Doug. We were talking about, the motion is a 2% flat raise, but we were talking about 2.19%. 2.12, legally, do we need to put that .12 in there?
To expend all the money. I don't know if legally, I looked at the hold harmless, instruction, from Mary Ann Dursky. It says, the salary component was increased 4%, and the insurance unit cost has also been increased to reflect the increase from January 2021, which was the 2.5% medical. Do you guys have any other corresponding information? Okay. And were we emailed that, other than the what I have from Mary Ann?
I sent you that,
Let me
sheet, and it refers to TCA 49-3-306, provides in any district.
Kinzer.
Okay, let me go back to something you said earlier, Doug. How much is the total number of 2.12%?
1,592,000.
Okay.
It's our difference in
Who
revenue.
seconded my motion? I want to change my motion then to the 2.12%, whatever it comes out to, exactly the legislative approval.
Is it the one you sent from TEA, Ms. Kinzer? Okay, yes, it says here, BEP instructional component funds must be spent on salaries and or benefits, per TCA code 49-3-306B4B.
Okay.
So,
I want to go ahead and do that then, since that was my motion. I'll say that I will make the motion reflect the number that was presented by the legislature. Mr. Lindsay has agreed to second my new motion. Let's have some discussion on that one. Mr. Sims?
Just a very quick clarification. This is a raise, not a bonus, so it will show years to come, correct? And also, this is for employees across the board, no matter whatever their title is, they will be getting this 2.12%.
that's correct. Okay, this would be a $652,081 deficit total now.
How much was that said again?
$652,081, $652,081. Total expenditure of $110,124,069.69.
Ms. Kinzer?
I will be voting no, because I think it needs to be no less than 3%. And it's not taking that much out of fund balance to do that. But be clear, my no vote is not because I don't want teachers to have a raise. I want them to have a decent raise.
Mr. Moore?
Along those lines, I actually am slightly different, but I'm happy to see a raise in here. I was really hoping we could come in at a balanced budget or something, so I'll be voting no simply because it's a deficit, but I actually like the direction this was moving.
Any other lights or any other discussion? We will be voting. Mr. Laconin has his thumb up for some reason. Oh, okay. I thought you were either getting ready to hitchhike out of here or something else was going on. All right, you can see the number. This is a motion to take the budget that we will be presenting back to the county commission with a 2.12% raise as authorized by the Tennessee General Assembly, putting our final budget at just moved. Scroll it back down, please. 110,124,069. That leaves us with a deficit of 652 and some change. 652,000 and some change. With that, if there's no other, if you're voting yes, you're voting to approve this budget. If you're voting no, you're voting not to approve this budget. Mr. Perriman.
It's all kind of power tonight, right?
You are the man.
Please vote now.
That's what threw me off last time. Oh, okay. The vote of 5-5, that budget does not pass.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Kinzer.
I'd like to move that we give a 3% raise.
Okay, Mr. Laconia, can you run the numbers on that? We have a motion for a 3% raise, seconded by Mr. Howell.
All right, this puts our total expenditure at $111,532,069, a deficit of $2,060,081.
2 million what?
$60,081. She asked for a 3% raise, though. We had a 2.12? 1 million, oh yeah, you know what? Good catch, Wayne, I'm glad we're using your numbers
Well, I'm
tonight.
okay to amend that to 4%, Mr.
I did give you 4%,
I
I
know.
anticipated your motion. Yeah.
Well, that'll be the next one if this doesn't pass.
All right, total expenditure of $110,874,069, deficit of $1,402,081. Total expenditure $110,874,069. And a deficit of $1,402,081, Mrs. Shirley. Mr. Perriman.
All right, Ms. Kinzer? Oh,
Oh, is it still on?
yeah, sorry, okay. Mr. Lindsay?
I guess I need to read this conflict of interest statement every time we vote, so that's what Mr. Wolver said. So, have a conflict of interest in the item about to be voted upon. I pledge my votes guided by my conscience, and my decision is only made in the best interest of Murray County Schools in mind.
I don't see any other lights, so it seems like I was getting ready to say something about this too. Oh, how does this affect, I guess, will we need to go ahead and pick up with the food service budget after this?
It hasn't, you guys have.
Is it part of the budget
It
discussion?
hasn't been denied by the commission. It
That hasn't been
sent
brought up by
back.
the commission?
They passed it, took it under advisement at the budget committee. You can amend it if you would like, but it has been approved. Not tonight we can't. There's no need though.
So what we could do is a budget amendment in the coming,
Yes.
talk to me about how we're gonna solve this.
We can amend it on June 1st. Don't we have a meeting June 1st?
Yes.
We can amend it on June 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion on the 3% raise as reflected in the numbers that are on the screen? June 1st, the county commission will receive this, but we will also be having a school board meeting that night. So how could we do at the same time?
We would probably, we'll be in that budget meeting a long time.
Okay.
More than likely, you all will approve it before, we can put it at the end of the agenda
Okay.
and do it last. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, if y'all could figure that out, Ms. Kinzer, you and
I'll
I
talk
need to
to
talk about
Mr.
that. I'm gonna be
Summers.
out of town that week.
I'll talk to Mr.
Mr.
Summers
Chairman.
and we'll make sure it's on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Mr. Moore.
Ms. Kinzer, I just wanna make sure that you also want to include in your motion the increase of revenue as well. I just wanna make sure we're covering all the same bases. Then it may need to be reflected in that.
The BEP, all the stuff we talked about earlier, sales tax and BEP. Okay. And all that is included in your calculations, I'm assuming? Okay. Is there any other discussion on this? are there any things that we're overlooking as far as things that we'll need to adjust as a result of making this kind of a change?
I mean, we're gonna need some more revenue in the future. Might be overlooking that, I don't know. I mean, we're in the hole. So we'll overcome that. Our fund balance can take this hit. We hope that our revenues outperform and we're frugal with our expenditures within reason, to provide good service to Murray County. So, Would you like to say that?
Mr. Lindsay?
Yeah.
I just want, Doug's way more conservative than I am, but, but the day of reckoning was coming, and we reached the day of reckoning. We're all sitting here, Mr. Hickman and I had this conversation this morning, we're sitting here tonight trying to fix, I can't say what I want to say, because I don't want to read it tomorrow, but, but we're trying to fix a mess that happened over a number of years, so the only way to fix it is at some point we had to bite the bullet, and we're in the process of biting the bullet. I think as we move forward, as revenues, as our expenditures now are budgeted more closely to our actual expenditures, which has not been the case in the last couple of years, I think we'll realize that we're in a little bit better shape than we find ourselves today. But it just come a point where we had to bite the bullet, and that's where we are now. Hopefully we can move forward, but we're just cleaning up a mess from the last few years right now.
Mr. McClellan, when we first sent this to the county commission, what was the deficit?
1.2 million, I believe. I think I can pull that document from the agenda, so I'll go ahead and pull it up.
If you say that it was that close, that's fine. For some reason, I had in my head it was the 500,000 number. Okay, Ms. Parker.
Was that the 19th?
You're not gonna get any argument out of me that it's a mess, and it was a mess for a long time, and we all bear some responsibility for that, those of us that were here during that time. But I can also remember some of the things that I learned even before that director. And one of those things was you don't pay recurring expenses out of fund balance. And this is a huge hit to our fund balance in my mind, based off of what I was taught when I first got on the board. And again, I'm not saying the teachers don't deserve a raise. I had the expectation that we were going to come in and see the direction that central office wanted to go with raises, but also see closer to a balanced budget. And that's the part that really concerns me. I think for the last 2 years we've been trying to overcome, was it attrition, Doug, that never happened?
Twice in a row.
Yeah, 2 times in a row that we budgeted attrition, and the people at central office at that time didn't follow through on attrition, and it gives me heartburn to think that we're gonna go down this path again, especially when we know that we have so many needs in our district. And it's not just the teachers that have needs, it's the students that have needs. And we know that. And I'm just not sure that this budget accurately reflects taking care of both of those needs. And that's my concern.
Mr. Laconin.
Just to answer your question accurately, it was a deficit of $930,178.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hooper.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, along the same lines as them, I mean, when you make a budget, your goal should be to have net zero. You don't want to lose money, and that's what we're doing here. And we're going the opposite direction. If you're spending money out of your fund balance, it's not a great thing to do for something that's gonna come back every year. Eventually, you're going the wrong way, and we're already headed that way. And you say we have to bite the bullet eventually. We're biting off more bullet than we were given right now. We were given money to give a raise, and we're choosing to do even more, which is fine, but we're going the wrong way. And the sustainability of it it just, I have reservations about it, because we also have to run the district while paying people. It's important, but so is funding everything else in the district, and if we continue to dip into our fund balance every year, there are things that we've already talked about doing that aren't gonna happen anymore. Like the central track, that million roughly quoted, if I remember, is not gonna be able to happen if we keep spending fund balance for payroll. And it's not a smart idea in my eyes, and that's pretty much where I'm at.
Ms. Kinzer.
I just wanna ask Mr. Draconin, didn't you say you would be comfortable with us using this much out of fund balance? You had told us use the figure 1.5 before, so we're within that range.
I'm comfortable, it's just we can't do that every year.
I understand that. Of course, we did some recurring things. We hired nurses and used that out of fund balance.
And, the second thing I would say is that, you know, projects that would come that you would normally be able to say yes due to having a surplus or yes due to having some fund balance there, you gotta think about saying no more often on those projects, and that's just how you would go, or hopefully the revenue comes in. If you don't, you can go ask, you know, Mr. Hickman and the school board, you know, we're at a deficit of 1.4 million right now. That's 5.61 property tax pennies. That would be the ask from the commission rather than deciding to take it out of your fund balance to increase that revenue to have a balanced budget. So, that is an option.
Mr. Hickman, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
There's also another option that you could look at. We have ESSER 3.0 that we're starting to work on this coming up week. And, we can look at also using some of that as a bonus instead of doing the 2.2% and then add additional bonus to that.
Mr. Lindsay.
Mr. Lacona, can you remember a time when the school system did not put money into fund balance at the end of the year?
Yeah.
When?
17-18. It was and then 16-17 was a $2 million deficit.
Because of bad budgeting?
Smart move, Mr. Lacone. I want to go back to what Mr. Hickman said with the bonus. I'm uncomfortable doing anything that doesn't put that 2.12% BEP increase into raises. That's just my take on that. Any other lights on the discussion regarding 3% raise? Ms. Irvin.
This is the green card. That's what I'm going to say it for me being a newbie. I mean, how difficult is it to ask the county commission to fund that? I mean, instead of it going into our revenue. I know, I'm sorry.
It's easy to ask.
I can put you on the agenda, you know, you can show up and plead the case. I mean, that's how it is. Mr. Fulbright was at the May 11th meeting for operation discussion and May 19th for capital discussion. I think he can speak to it as good as anybody.
'Cause I did kind of give an update the other night, when I came in late from the one budget meeting. Our operations budget was well received, quite frankly. And I believe there was was there a 2 penny increase in that just to equal out the revenue from property tax? Do I remember that right, or am I?
That would have been almost 4 pennies
Okay,
to settle that deficit.
okay. I guess to hold the maintenance of effort, though, were there any penny increases in what we presented to the county commission that night?
No, we were willing to take that out of fund balance when we presented it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did not know that. I guess what I want to say is, it was well received because we had put so much thought, and they could tell by the way it was presented that thought had been put into it this year, which hasn't always been the case in the presentations they've received. They are, and I'm speaking as a former commissioner, very reluctant to increase property tax for any reason. And the schools have made a good case where I think we could get by with a little bit, but 5 might be stretching our luck quite a bit. But it never hurts to ask. I mean, and then that's what it would be, is an ask and an increase in the maintenance of effort going forward.
So, Mr. Fulbright, if I may, trying to get my head around this whole financial game, what I've heard from teachers, of course, we've all heard, is that other county, employees, which I know they do not employ what we do, that the county did grant, was it a 4% raise for other county, a 5% raise? Was that at any kind of tax increase, Mr. Lukonen, or was that already, absorbed through our current revenue?
Currently, they're planning to have a deficit budget as well so far, so. So, and this is where, again, I hate to be so ignorant to this cause, but, if we pass this, is it that, can we pass it asking for them to potentially increase this, and then if they don't, then we can reposition it, or if we pass it, is it just we are automatically going to absorb that deficit? How does that work?
Doug, speak on that, 'cause then I've got a question.
The commission passes a property tax resolution, so that would be the, time in which the school board would ask for that. You're sending they send a revenue recommendation, back in response to our budgets. So when they have that property tax resolution discussion on how much property tax to allocate each fund, they can choose to raise it, raise property taxes and increase the overall, balance that'll be charged to property tax owners. Or they can just shuffle it around, give the school a little bit more, take it away from somewhere else, so on and so forth. So that would be the meeting to ask for funding on that, above and beyond what is currently being funded by property tax, and they can make that decision at that time. We can also discuss when we present our budget, because it will be their decision on whether to move property tax pennies over to fund the deficit.
But if we pass this today, then we're absorbing it if they say no, is that correct? We're absorbing the deficit in fund balance. I'm sorry, I'm making you
Yes,
so difficult.
technically you would, if we increased our property tax revenue at this point in time on a motion, then we would be asking for it. So we can balance the budget today, ask for 5.61 more property tax pennies. That would cost the average taxpayer, with a home of value assessed at $220,000, $2.30 a month.
Can I go, so our property tax penny allotment went down by 2 pennies?
No, the property tax allotment is the same.
Dollar figure wise?
Dollar figure wise, it's going up.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I was confused about
Yeah.
earlier. Okay.
It was my motion, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
My motion is a 3% raise that would take the deficit out of fund balance,
Okay.
not ask the county commission to even give them the opportunity to take pennies away.
Okay. Mr. Lindsay?
Yeah,
Oh, were you done, Ms. Irvin? I interrupted you. All right, Mr. Lindsay.
I just wanted to comment on that. I think some of the favor, and you might speak to it, that we had that night is we were not asking for a tax increase. We're asking for the same number of pennies. Now, there's some belief on that commission that, and I don't know whether they have 12 votes or not, but there's some belief that they would like to cut us the maintenance of effort. If they cut us the maintenance of effort, we're talking about a $3.5 million decrease. Okay, so let's think about that for a minute. If the county commission comes back and says you guys are getting maintenance of effort, we got a whole nother discussion. We got to cut over $3 million out of that. So our hope is, my hope is that we get the number of pennies we've been allocated now, and I'm going to turn cartwheels if we get them. We don't want to ask for 5.61 more, in my opinion, because I don't think that we have a chance of getting that.
But you're saying we're already getting a 2 penny increase, correct?
We're getting natural revenue increase from the pennies we already have.
That's what, because they could take those pennies away, could they not?
They can take a penny away for as much revenue as our sales tax has gone up.
That's where I'm getting at.
So our current estimate right now for sales tax, what I have, my numbers, not Wayne's, unless you like Wayne's numbers more, I guess, but.
I don't on this one.
Well, no, let me stop you right there, because I think you're going down a different trail than where I want to go.
Okay.
What did we receive last year in property tax from the county commission, or this current year? Say that again. 26.
That's all taxes.
Yeah, I'm just wanting property tax.
All right, so this year so far, we've received, or what was
Budgeted.
given to us,
Budgeted.
budgeted was 24,264,000.
What was that penny rate, or what was that in pennies?
102.24 pennies.
Okay. So
And-
this year, if we ask for 102
.24 pennies.
pennies, comes to,
25,560,000.
is that what's in our budget?
That is what's in our budget.
Okay. So they could knock that down just a little bit.
They can knock it
They
down a
could,
bunch.
they could knock it down, so
I'm just talking about property tax wise. I don't wanna get into all the rest of this.
that's correct.
Okay.
Just property tax.
If we go in there and say, we don't want any additional property tax pennies, we just want the allotment that we had last year, that's what's reflected in this revenue number.
That's correct.
That's all I wanted. Thank you.
All right.
But I think you have to be mindful, we're asking for a $3.9 million increase in sales tax, is that right? Okay, so 3.5 million is 14 pennies. If they wanted to cut us the maintenance effort, they can cut us 14 pennies.
Right. Right.
So that everybody pray hard.
But I will say this, based off of our conversation the other night, there's more of a trust in this budget than there has been in past budgets. I will say that going forward. I'm not saying, I don't know how much trust there is. We might be getting ready to find out how much trust, but there was some trust. Is there any further discussion on the 3% raise? Numbers are up there reflected, and the balance, the deficits come out of fund balance. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. That passes. It was, I thought the yeses were 5. Well, it does, doesn't it? Okay, well, I guess we're back to the drawing board. I'll entertain a new number. Mr. Hickman.
I'd like to go back to the original, what I said earlier, is would you guys consider looking at going back to the 2.12 raise, and then we put some ESSER funds aside for a bonus? And I can't make motions, just
Do you have a recommendation on the bonus amount? Maybe Mr. Laconin could,
I think before we talked about, I don't think, I know, what we had talked about before we got this money was looking at a $1,000 bonus. Was I correct on that, Doug?
One time,
One time.
in addition to a 2.12%
Did you
raise?
say 1,500?
1,000
1,000 across the board?
across the board.
That, as long
All
as,
right, we just need
there's
to-
upfront work we need to do on ESSER 3.0 to make sure that that actually happens, but yes, it would be doable. There is plenty of money in ESSER 3.0 if approved in the plan. It's a long process, and everything is due by August 1st, so it won't happen immediately. Just forewarning.
All right, well, give us some numbers that we can start ruminating over.
I'll make a motion.
All right,
Oh,
all right, one
excuse me.
second. Miss Kinser's got her
No,
light on for a
let-
motion.
Let Mr. Sims speak.
Mr. Sims, have at it.
I was just gonna ask, I'd heard some rumors of the state holding summer camps accountable, and if not, then some funds would be withheld. Can you speak on that?
There are some attendance requirements, and then based on if some of the TANF children don't attend. We may not get all the funds that are allocated out there. But when we originally received ESSER 2.0, we set aside funds to pay for that, not knowing what the state was gonna provide, so we would be able to offset. We feel pretty confident we're gonna get most of those funds, but if we don't, we have ESSER funds that will offset that. So there won't be anything that will come out of general purpose.
I was just gonna second what Mr. Gaines said. This would, if we do the bonus, it is not going to come out of the 141 fund. It would be out of the 142 fund, which is a budget y'all don't even approve because it's backed by federal programs and we get grant monitored. All the money comes from grants and federal funding, so.
We're able to use it for bonus?
We would be able to, yes.
Ms. Irvin, and then Ms. Kinzer.
Mr. Hickman, assuming that we are able to use the ESSER funds for a bonus, we would still also potentially be able to use ESSER funds for some of those positions, potentially. That wouldn't conflict or wash each other out, would it?
Yes, ma'am. But kind of what Doug has alluded to, they cut off the application process, stopped it, and the federal government has came back, and there's a lot more hoops to jump through, I guess you would say. So, a lot of people we're not behind, we're where we need to be because of these new hoops. People that even thought they had their applications done have to go back and redo them. So, yes, unless the board chooses to redirect money somewhere else, but we had that kind of already in plan with using ESSER 3.0 before this money came. We also had in our plan for learning loss, we can use that 20% we have to set aside from it. We found out that you can use it to hire additional staff with that 20% we have to set aside for learning loss.
You want me to make a motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, before I make a motion, I absolutely am willing to make a motion about the 2.19 and the $1,000, nothing less, okay? But I do challenge this board that when we have our retreat in the fall, we have got to have a strategic plan about salaries, about all of this. We should not be, as Wayne, as I, some of you may have, contacting Doug today was just like, Ms. Parker's right. It was everybody running around like, to find out this information. Should not be. I move that we give all employees a 2.19% raise, is that the number that's correct?
2.12.
2.12, and a $1,000 bonus from the, ESSER funds.
Mr. Lacona. Oh, wait. Is there a second? Okay, give it to Sims. He hadn't done anything tonight. All right, Mr. Lacona.
So, just to be clear, the $1,000 bonus will not be included in the 141 fund budget, and it is going to be presented to you in a plan that takes into account stakeholders in the community. Yes, there's plenty of money there. The estimated cost right now is about $1,857,000 to give that bonus, and that's based on current staffing levels. So, if, people leave, people are added, that changes the cost of it in the future, and this is something that has to be approved and done by August 1st, so we will be talking about it, and they have a plan, so just letting you know that is not going to change our 141 numbers tonight, but it will be an amendment to the 142 fund budget, and it will come before the board for approval.
Okay, Mr. Hickman.
I think we do need to keep that about the ESSER 3.0 out because we haven't approved the contract. We hadn't approved the application hasn't been approved yet. It will be. But and we know it's allowable. We know we're going to do it.
If I add if funds are available?
Yes.
However, I'll defer to the board chair.
I want us to vote on that so
Right.
that you have the pressure. If I say when funds are available.
Yeah, I'll defer to the board chair on this.
We can put it in there like that. How much do we anticipate the ESSER grant being?
18 million.
So this takes a tenth of that.
Thinking too fast.
What else do you anticipate using that ESSER money on?
Like I said before, we've already spent about 30 million of the 18 million.
Well, we're
But,
spending
yeah.
another 2 million of it
So
right
now
now.
it's 32. No, we're anticipating to bring before you, we've got to get these groups that have to give their input. We anticipate some additional staff for learning loss. We anticipate some of the HVAC.
Well, here, I'll just cut to the short answer question here. You've already got a list made up of what you want to spend on?
We have some ideas. We have some ideas
What's
based
coming
on
off that list because of these bonuses?
it was already on there.
It was already
It
on
was
there.
considered,
It was considered to be on
yes,
there.
sir.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Sims?
In this, with part-time employees, will they be getting the full $1,000 bonus as well, or how will that factor in?
That hasn't been discussed as far as clarification applied to that. And now, historically, earlier this year, we gave part-time employees half of the bonus of a full-time employee. And that was a discussion that was communicated to me. So, right now, that detail is not organized and set forth yet.
And let me say, and let me say too, you know, you guys are gonna have more say. You may, you know, when we get to that point, say, hey, we've got the money there, why don't you increase it or decrease it too? Because we bring it before you at the end of the day to approve it,
Well, I'd like some clarification
the whole plan.
in the motion. I think Mr. Moore brings up a good point. Hang on one second. Wait a minute, 'cause right now, we're giving every staff member $1,000. I see Mr. Sims' point here. That needs to be clarified.
Every full-time staff.
You can't approve that bonus out of here because it's not gonna come out of this fund. So it can't be, and it can't be approved because there is no approved plan for that money. We can't even get that money until y'all approve that plan. So, and you guys don't even approve the 142 budget where this bonus is going to be paid out of. It doesn't even go in a resolution. Yes.
Which, it says if they're available, it doesn't lock us in.
Mr. Moore?
Ms. Kinzer, I appreciate where you're coming from on this, and I think we're all kind of moving that direction. Fundamentally, that's where my issue is. This just really isn't part of this budget discussion or any voting motion we would have with this piece of it. And I know it would be uncomfortable to not have it in there. I mean, I guess we could start putting language in there, but it's just shouldn't, in my opinion, shouldn't even be part of this.
And you guys have to vote on a plan that's been decided through surveys of the community and a bunch of stuff so that we can even get the 18 million. And we have to do that before August 1, and there'll be a specific vote on that plan to approve that raise separately, or that bonus separately.
For clarification, what this would be is a vote on the raise
And the
itself.
intent.
And then that would be a separate vote. The bonus would be whenever that plan is brought before us.
The reason I think it needs to be in the motion, it's the intent of this board that happened. I don't want it to be lost in the shuffle here, and that our employees know, although we're not, that they're getting the least amount of raise that we've discussed, but that the potential is going to be there, and as a board, we support it.
Mr. Lacona?
This budgetary document would not reflect that, and it wouldn't be reflected in the resolution because it cannot be paid out of this fund. And it is approved on a resolution from the commission at fund-by-fund level. 141, 143, those are separate approvals. 142 does not go on that document, and that is where these funds will come from. So this will have its own separate resolution, and I mean, when the plan is presented, I mean, that's when the intention will be shared. But I can't carry a budget document that doesn't have what the board wants in it, and I can't put what the board wants in it.
At this point.
So I'm between a rock and a
All
hard
right,
place.
so what do we do with this motion then? Because we got a motion.
I'm willing to change the motion to take that out, but I will entertain another motion for direction on what I think we need to do in the future about $1,000.
Okay, let's do this. Will you withdraw your motion and you withdraw your second, and then we'll kind of start from square one? Is that
Yeah.
agreeable?
This looks fine.
Okay. I was gonna say, this is the one we voted on earlier and didn't approve.
We're in a parliamentary procedure conundrum right now. Somebody that voted no has to make this motion.
We hadn't voted on it.
We voted.
This is the very first thing we voted on.
Oh.
Betty voted no?
Yeah, so she could make the motion then. Okay, so this is the motion. She's gonna bring back this motion.
All right.
Mr. Sims, do you wanna have a second on it again? All right.
Copy paste Michael's motion from earlier.
Man, I don't even remember what I motioned earlier.
110, 124, 069.
It doesn't mean I'm happy about it.
Read fast. Read your disclaimer fast.
Oh, well, I got a comment too. I have a conflict of interest in the item about to be voted upon for the second time tonight. I pledge that my vote is guided by my conscience and my decision is only made with the best interest of Maury County Schools in mind.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Lindsay, you had a comment. We've got a motion and we've got a second, so we're,
Well, I'll tell you what, let's vote on this and then I'll hold that comment.
what if it changes the vote? Okay, now let me ask you a question. I'm not ready to vote yet. Give me one number. I'm not gonna discuss this any further unless I'm blown away by your number. If we do a 2.5% raise for everybody, what does that put our deficit? Are you gonna hit me with this?
I withdraw my motion.
No, wait a minute. You might not like where I'm going with it, though.
$935,000 deficit.
Is where we were before.
And so we would go to the 652 number, going back to the 2.12%.
Okay, and I'm gonna tell you why I don't think I want to do this, because I'm not voting for a bonus if I do this. Mr. Lindsay.
You brought up bonus, so I'll ask my question. I was gonna hold it. Have all ESSER 2.0 funds been expended today?
I don't think, all of ESSER 1, I believe, has, but we're checking right now. Yeah, except for summer stipends, yeah. No. It hasn't, no.
So here's where I'm going with that. So if there's $1.8 million, whatever that number was, that hasn't been expended, we have been approved for ESSER 2.0.
But I'm pretty sure y'all have already approved that plan and done that deal. I would just ask them. I really don't, they know that better than I do. Michael and Scott.
All right, let's pull this back on track. I think we're getting a little off the weeds. You do have a motion. I'm not doing anything with my question. We have a motion for 2.12 raise, and then with the understanding that we're not doing a motion, with the understanding of a bonus when that plan that we have not spent. That cannot be in the motion, but it is the intent of the lady from District 2, you're 2, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
That'd be the intent.
My IQ too.
I believe we are ready to vote. All right, that budget proposal does pass. But they're in a different time zone doesn't mean. It's like Fox News when they
What
call
now?
us for the central time zone, done voting.
Ms. Hopkins hadn't voted.
It came up, then it just left me.
All right. Now may I call it? We are projecting this motion passes.
Projecting.
All right, so does that take care of everything we need on this one?
We just need to have, food services brought back and with it reflecting the same raise.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, organizational chart and new position.
This was a part of that budget. I had just been asked by a board member to, yeah, Ms. Parker had asked for an org chart and for a job description for new positions asked. That's all
Okay.
it was. It was already in your budget,
All right.
so.
Do we need to do anything then with number 4, operations organizational chart?
No, FY,
Instruction organizational chart.
FY.
That was the same thing.
This
But
was
we did not fund any new positions.
Okay.
So there was no job description.
There
for
was
that.
a request to put on the gutter replacement at Mount Pleasant Middle School for an emergency purchase.
This came,
Go ahead.
motion
Got
to
a
approve.
Motion approved here, second for Mr. Sims. Any discussion? Ms. Kinzer? Oh, okay. Seeing no other discussion, we'll vote. Sims?
I made the motion, Mr.
Yeah. All right. Has everybody had a chance to vote? Action has been saved. That passes. Capital budget request for athletics. Anything there?
The other night, Mr. Fulbright, after you left the commission meeting, when they discussed the $660,000 that was on the, capital request that was earmarked for athletics, they simply made the request that I come back to you and ask that you consider to fund that out of your fund balance. They said if you did not, it would come back to them on June 1. They understood that. If you did, it just would not come back. I don't know that there's an action, I mean, there may be a vote that needs to be taken. It was just a request from them to say, you consider to fund it out of fund balance. If you don't do that, if you don't take an action, then that capital budget just goes back to them. But that was just their request.
Does everybody understand that if we take no action, then it'll just go back as we presented it originally? Is there any further discussion? Is there a motion? I do not see one, so it will just return back the way it was presented.
Thank you.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Howell. Everybody in favor, stand up and leave.
I watched the whole.
You like?
You did great.
Yep, one second.